Excellent, Kevin. Thanks. I appreciate the introduction. So just for some context and just to make sure we're all here for, or we all understand why we're here, the key, obviously, for marketing is really about generating leads and then working with sales to nurture and convert these. In a recent study that was completed late last year and then early this year, it identified that the top two marketing objectives for 2015 was specifically about generating leads, and 80% of the people surveyed said that was their top priority, and then nurturing and progressing those leads through to sales was just under 80%. And this really sets the landscape for the webinar. So today, what I'm specifically focusing on is the journey that a prospect takes from interacting with your SEO and your social content or AdWords to then finally converting them to a customer. I built this session around focusing on both the marketing approach, and then we've got some supporting tools and kits that you can use to generate and convert more of those leads into sales. There is some really interesting research, and there's plenty of it, around what is the buying cycles and processes to do that. But I found this research by Forrester really compelling, showing that between 75 to 90% of the decision journey is completed before a prospect visits your website. So we really can't sit back and wait for buyers to reach out to us. We need to look at how we can influence our prospects during their buying journey, and this starts specifically with our SEO activity and targeting prospects when they're broadly looking for solutions, all the way to building the repeat purchase with our customers. So we can't just sit back and wait for them to come to us. We need to understand where and when they're making decisions, what they're looking for in terms of information for their decision process, and then use that insights to educate and influence them. We look closely at the buyer's journey, and obviously that depends if it's a consumer model versus a B2B model. But it's understanding the journey that a consumer or a prospect goes through would allow us to influence them during that. And there are stages that we need to look at. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got with the red, orange, greens, a journey is much more of a standard journey where we're looking at realizing the problem or need. We then do some research, establish what's important to us in that process, and then fundamentally make a decision. On the right-hand side of the screen is a much more detailed B2B journey. And it's really the challenge for marketers is to really understand this journey. What are the factors that we can influence, and when and who we can influence them in that journey. What's then important is that how we map those buyers through our funnel and through the journey, through the process to it. So if we look at the top of the funnel, we've got an awareness stage on the left-hand side, going down to the interest in green, and then the consideration set. What we do for our clients, and what we encourage our clients to do, is map the buyer's journey and considering the needs to purchase at the top of that funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. And at each stage, they'll require different analysis and approach that your prospects will have different needs, requirements, and want different content depending where they are in that funnel. So at the top of the funnel, typically, we're looking at broad research. So it's, do I have a problem? What does it mean? What are the pain points that I'm trying to identify? While much more at the bottom of the funnel needs to be much more detailed, proof-based information, fundamentally supporting their decision process and at the end of that journey for them. Once you understand the funnel and where you're trying to direct people and prospects through the funnel, you can then look at how your SEO approach can be used to drive and nurture your prospects. At Permission, we use a methodology that we call unlocking the power of permission, a play on our, obviously, company name. And it's a methodology that we use to build valuable and sustainable relationships with our targets. And it really starts with, at the bottom of the journey, at the bottom left corner, a suspect, all the way through to a brand advocate or ambassador. And we break that into 7 stages. And each of these stages is a journey in itself. So when we look at activities for our clients, we try to understand, are we trying to drive more people to their website, which is about building awareness and driving prospects, or are we trying to convert those visitors, those prospects, into a visitor and provide some information? And each one of those we'll have a process and a series of campaign messaging that we can drive to. We then take these broad 7 stages and we break them down into 4 different areas. So we're looking, are we acquiring customers or prospects? Are we activating those visitors to become customers? And then we're trying to convert those customers into a repeat purchase and fans, or are we retaining them and building advocacy and brand ambassadors for us? And we then break each of our briefs into different stages based on those stages within that. So really, to leverage SEO to drive sales, it's about building SEO-based content that is tied into the buyer's decision journey and considering the specific requirements for each prospect. We identified 5 stages that you need to follow to be able to convert more leads to customers. But really, at the heart of each of these 5 stages is an approach of understanding who your customers are, nurturing them through a journey, and then converting them at the right time. What I'll do now is step through each of those 5 and provide some toolkits and advice on how to work through them. Step 1 is define your targets. So this is really about understanding who your ideal customer is, what defines them, and who they are. The key thing here, specifically, or more importantly within a B2B environment, is there can be up to between 4 and 10 different people in any decision process. So gone are the days where you had an approved budget of a reasonable size that one person could make a decision on. Now, in B2B and in consumer environments, there's joint decisions, and each person within that process will have their own priorities and influences. And the real key is within your SEO marketing and content marketing is to consider each of those buyers' priorities and needs and their demographics, behaviors, motivations, challenges, and pain points, and massage them into building and defining your target. What we recommend is using a buyer profile template. And this starts with actually giving a person a name, which helps you put a personality behind them. Are they male, female, typically, that sort of thing. And then in a B2B environment, what's their title, their description, responsibilities, what are their goals and objectives? And then really delve into what are their pain points and what's their role in the purchase decision. So are they an influencer? Are they a approver? How do you need to influence them to make sure that they're recommending your solution in the final decision? And then finally, what's the marketing messages that we want to target them? So obviously, a line of business person would have a very different messaging than a finance person or a managing director. The next step in the journey is really defining that buyer's journey. And this really is mapping your customer decision-making process against their profile. So you need to think about, and in our model, the phases of suspect, prospect, visitor, customer, fan, and advocate. And you need to consider each of the buyers within the profile, with a specific profile, to what's the stage they're in and what's the action you want to go through with them. So you complete this tool around mapping the buyer's journey so that you know where you want to take each of the people within the journey through to the next phase and what the content required for that. The next step, step 3, is defining channels and the touch points. And this is about initially is about acquiring the prospect. So how do you drive people to your website? And this is really where your search, your SEO and paid search, and your content, which is also SEO driven, and your ads, etc., and stories start to form part of your keywords and your marketing. And here it's about focusing on your value proposition. So really, why is it that people would want to consider you for the solution that you're trying to sell to them? And you need to be wary of them, so of where they are in that buying cycle. So are they already aware of their problem and you're trying to start to talk about solutions? Or are they very much trying to understand what they're trying to achieve and looking at what are the potential solutions or pain points or problems they could have before they can even start to look at solutions? So the other part of defining and acquiring your prospects is how do you drive people to your visitors to your website. And this is where your SEO starts to really come into play. And this focuses specifically on the keywords, and the glue that you're using that unites your ads and your SEO content back to your site. So it's keywords that people respond to in your materials to create specific landing pages and content for you. So consider your keywords. where people are in your journey, and then that's where you'll build specific materials that fit to that requirement for them. And in that process, again, you need to consider where they are in that buying cycle, what their challenges are, their motivations and aspirations are. Once you've got them visiting your website, the next stage is converting them to become a customer. And this singularly focuses on that trade around your content, your valuable content, and their personal information. And the better you understand that trade, the more successful you can be in converting people. So the principle here is around providing valuable information or services that somebody is prepared to provide you a little bit more information so you know who they are. And specifically within a buying cycle, it's about identifying, are they the influencers, are they decision makers, do they have budget approval, and where they are up to allows you to better target and understand that customer. The other key perspective here in terms of converting your customers, your prospects to a customer, is around progressively profiling your leads. So don't try to ask for everything up front. Go step by step. Ask for enough information so that you've got an ability to action the marketing lead, but not too much that scares them away from providing the details. Again, on the other side of that trade, you've got to provide them enough information and value back for them to go, yes, this is worth me providing you my information. This webinar is a great example. We asked for some typical information at the start of this webinar for when you registered, and you were obviously prepared to provide that information because it was part of the content exchange was the webinar that you're giving us. You're also, as part of this trade, providing your time this morning, so I need to make sure I respect that and provide value to you as well. Step 4 in this process is providing valuable content. This comes down to a content matrix, which I'll go through in a little bit more detail. And to do that, it maps the customer profile and the buyer's journey. Again, this is where your SEO activity will support this and define your content on and off your site. So when we talk about SEO and content, we're considering not just the SEO capabilities of your website, the coding and structure of your website and the content you have on your website, but your off-site content is also critical to your SEO. Once this content is tied into the buyer's decision journey, you can consider the specific requirements for each prospect and you'll be able to convert your leads to customers. Remember, to create content that your prospects want to read, that addresses not content that addresses your marketing messages. This is about what's providing value to your prospects and customers, not about making sure that they read your best case study or that they're understanding your specific marketing messages. In terms of a content matrix, again, on the left-hand side of this screen, we've got the different buying stages that a prospect will go through. So in this model, we've used interest, problem, research, criteria, decision, and approval. And then you look at the content for each of the different profiles. So again, we've just talked about 2 different profile buyers in this model. But what are the interests that is going to trigger profile buyer number 1 versus profile buyer number 2? Again, what's the problem that the first buyer might perceive that he has or she has compared to the buyer number 2 in the model? So again, this is about matching the profile to the journey so the buying stages and the content all support each other. So to be a bit more specific around SEO-friendly content and where we're at in terms of SEO content, there are 5 key practices that we focus on when we're recommending and considering how to build SEO-friendly content. But really the key is to plan carefully your keywords and match your keywords to the content, and always focus on quality rather than quantity. It's not about, as it says there, overdoing it. It's about optimizing the right content, making sure you've got the right terms on the page and you're using your keywords selectively and correctly and building quality content, not quantity of content. A few tips in terms of when you're considering keywords. So just for clarity, to make sure we all understand or on the same page, a keyword is the word or phrase a prospect will use to search for your content. So again, it might be a keyword they use on your website to search for specific information, or it's a keyword that they'll use that they then drive them back to your website. So there are a variety of tools and approaches to find out what keywords are searching, and we really recommend looking at what people are searching on your website, as well as commonly available tools through Google or Bing, etc., that allow you to help find keywords and define keywords. The key thing is that what I said earlier as well is that content should really focus on one main topic. So make sure your keywords are representing a key topic, and that you've got pages to do that, and that keyword represents your content and are commonly used. And at the heart of everything, as I've said a few times now, it's about really understanding your audience and their content needs, and that will help you define exactly the keywords you need to consider. A few other keyword tips that you need to consider as well, and this goes back to the funnel model that I talked about earlier. Just as your content should change depending on where a prospect is in the funnel, so should your SEO keywords. So when we consider keywords at the start of the journey, the likelihood is your prospects are doing quite broad searches, and you need keywords that are more than just a single phrase or a deep dive into an issue. It's broad terms around a specific issue, versus long-term tail keywords, which help drive the end of the sale process. So at the end of the journey, your prospects are really looking for specific information. So they're looking for real detail around separating out the providers that they could be choosing from, and they want to make sure that they're choosing the right thing, the right partner to work with or solution to purchase. So in this scenario, you're looking for much longer tail keywords that will help you drive that. And again, what is critical is don't write content for your search engines, write content for your customers, and that will then drive the value of a search engine. Gone are the days where you can trick Google into making it believe that you're a valuable resource by adding heaps of keywords and content around it. You now need to be much more selective and valuable, and Google will understand the consumer behavior much better and therefore prioritize your content over your competitor content. So the last stage in this journey is really the nurturing your leads. And this is where, as Kevin said at the beginning, marketing automation comes into it. And for the people that aren't aware, marketing automation is a process of managing and optimizing the customer experience to drive people through your funnel. It really supports your ability to measure and improve those conversions and fundamentally increase leads. Again, the best way to do this is by using a marketing automation platform that allows you to customize the journey and respond to prospect behavior in real time. So in a scenario where marketing automation differs from just an email platform, is around being able to score, qualify, and then change the journey based on a behavior of a specific prospect. So if a prospect in your journey suddenly looks more active and more likely to convert, you want to immediately trigger either an email to purchase or a flag to your sales team to say, this is a highly targeted sales-ready lead that you need to call today. And that's really where marketing automation bridges the gap, as it says in that last point, between lead generation and customer conversion, and allows marketing and sales to work far closer together. Just a couple of other benefits, or a few other benefits around marketing automation, and there are a number that we could go through, but really some of the most significant benefits are its ability to streamline the sales process, increase conversion, and close leads quicker. And this is really through ensuring sales and marketing work much closer together. So there's a variety of statistics and reports available that you can download from our website or from Acton's website as well, that allow you to really understand the benefits, measured benefits that a marketing automation platform can deliver and provide you faster lead conversion, etc. And there's a variety of research available that shows you how to do it and what to do, etc., to help you support this part of the journey as well. So really, in conclusion, the key to leverage your SEO is to drive its sales by building SEO-based content that is tied into the buyer's decision journey, and then considering the specific requirements for each prospect. If you follow the 5 steps that I've outlined, I know you'll be able to convert more leads to sales, because at the heart of that journey is really understanding your buyers, their motivations, their fears, their priorities, and where they are in your journey that allows you to then target and tailor your content and messaging to be able to nurture them through to the next stage and ultimately convert them to a customer. As I said earlier, from my perspective, there's plenty of information and examples and case studies that you can download on our resources section. There's the link there. Or if you, and from an old school way, if you really want to discuss this in more detail, I suggest you pick up the phone and give me a call. So that's my section of today's webinar. I'll just quickly hand back to Kevin, who will introduce James from Blue Mountain.